Welcome to Short Movie Channel. Our movie today begins in the ocean, on a ship heading to San Francisco. On board, we see a boy named Richard and a girl named Emily playing together. Richard's father appears, calls him over, and warns him to stay away from the edge of the ship because it's dangerous. He explains that they are traveling to San Francisco, a big city where they can find everything they dream of. Richard asks his father if his mother will be traveling with them, and his father replies that she passed away and is now in heaven. He explains that people who die cannot come back to Earth again. Emily adds that she realized this after her own parents died in an accident and never returned. The children continue playing until they reach the cook's room, where they start messing with his belongings. When the cook, Buddy, finds them, he gets really upset. Meanwhile, Richard's father goes to the captain to inform him of a massive storm approaching. Suddenly, without any warning, the ship starts shaking, and passengers begin to panic. Everyone rushes to the lifeboats to escape the fire that has broken out. The captain asks Buddy to take Richard and Emily to safety on one of the lifeboats. He assures Richard's father that his son will be safe and far from the fire. As the rest of the passengers board other lifeboats, Buddy tries to locate Richard's father and the captain, calling out to them. However, the storm makes visibility impossible. Buddy and the kids get separated from the rest of the ship's crew and find themselves alone in the middle of the ocean. The first day passes with Buddy and the children feeling scared. On the second day, Buddy finds a crate from the shipwreck containing some photos and clothes but no food. He tries to reassure the kids by telling them to listen for the sound coming from the sky, saying it means rain is near. This gives them hope, even though the children can't actually hear anything. On the third day, Emily spots an island nearby and alerts Buddy. When Buddy sees it, he is overjoyed, knowing they'll finally have a safe place to stay until they're rescued. Once they arrive on the island, they find a waterfall where they drink water and feel relieved. While exploring, Emily discovers a barrel near the waterfall and notices it smells similar to something from the ship. When Buddy opens it, he finds it's filled with alcohol, leaving him puzzled as to why such a barrel would be on an isolated island. Meanwhile, Richard finds a human skull in a nearby cave and tells Buddy, mentioning there are several more in the same place. This terrifies Buddy, and he decides to move the children to a different part of the island. Days pass as Buddy adjusts to their new life. He catches fish from the ocean, teaches Richard how to clean and grill it, and gathers fruit from the island's trees. He even builds a hut on the beach for them to live in and protect them from storms and cold. The children enjoy their time on the island, feeling like it has become their own. One night, Buddy hears the sound of loud drums coming from the other side of the island. He decides to wait until morning to figure out what to do next. While Buddy was collecting fruit, he decided to investigate the source of the sound he had heard. When he reached the other side of the island, he was shocked to find bloodstains and signs of an attack on one of the rocks. Terrified, he quickly returned to the hut using the boat. He told Richard and Emily that going to the other side of the island was forbidden. To scare them and keep them safe, he warned them about a giant ogre that eats children and explained that the rule was to stay away from that place. Frightened, the children promised they wouldn't go near that side of the island. The next day, the kids stayed up late playing with the photos and clothes they had found in the chest. Meanwhile, Buddy had drunk from a barrel of liquor and gotten very drunk. When he woke up the next morning, he still seemed intoxicated and went out to gather fruit on the island. When Richard and Emily woke up and couldn't find him, they went looking for him. Eventually, they found him lying on the shore. As they got closer, they realized he was dead, and a scorpion crawled out of his mouth. Emily was so shocked that she fainted, and Richard quickly took her back to the hut. Emily was devastated and asked Richard to take her to another part of the island because she couldn't stay in the place where Buddy had died. Richard agreed, gathered all their belongings, and they moved by boat to another, safer location. Days and years passed, and the children grew up, managing to build a complete life for themselves on the island. They made a house out of palm leaves and reeds and crafted fishing tools from bamboo. They spent their time enjoying the island's beauty and exploring new places. One year, Richard decided to surprise Emily. He gathered pearls from the oysters in the sea and told her that Santa Claus had brought them as a holiday gift. However, Emily realized he was lying and got upset because he had deceived her. Despite this, they celebrated the holiday together that night. Because of their isolation from the outside world since childhood, they didn't understand many of the changes they were going through or how to handle their feelings. One day, Emily was bathing in the lake when she suddenly started bleeding, even though she wasn't injured. She panicked and screamed loudly. Hearing her, Richard ran to check on her, but she pushed him away and seemed very distressed. Emily, scared and confused, tried to distance herself from Richard. Feeling frustrated, Richard confronted her, accusing her of hiding secrets from him, even though he never kept anything from her. The next day, Richard went out to fish, but a large fish slipped away from him, and the hook injured his hand. Frustrated, he returned to the hut and sat with Emily, watching the sunset. Emily was also deeply sad. They talked about the things and people they missed. They admitted to each other that they had never heard any voices from the sky, contrary to what Batty had told them. Richard said there were many things in the world he couldn't understand or find answers to, and he wished Batty were still with them to answer their questions and help them understand life. Seeing Richard's sadness, Emily tried to cheer him up and managed to make him smile. At that time, the two of them heard the loud sound of drums coming from the other side of the island. Emily felt scared, but Richard thought it might be the island's inhabitants, possibly sending them a welcoming signal. Despite this, Richard warned Emily not to go to the other side of the island. The next day, while Richard was busy fishing, Emily took the opportunity to sneak off to the other side of the island. She wandered around until she came across a large stone statue. She stood in front of it for a moment, but suddenly, she noticed blood dripping from the statue as if it were bleeding. Terrified, she rushed back to the boat and returned home. There, she confessed to Richard that she had gone to the other side of the island and told him about the statue. She apologized, but Richard was furious with her for breaking the rules. That night, Emily had a dream in which Richard was drowning. She woke up terrified by the thought of losing him and being left alone on the island. She asked him to promise never to leave her. Richard agreed and gave her his word. For the first time, he tried to get close to her, but Emily quickly pulled away and argued with him, leaving Richard frustrated and walking away. The next day, while Richard was picking fruit from a tree, he spotted a ship approaching the island. He quickly climbed down and rushed to light the signal fire, just as Patty had taught him. Meanwhile, Emily was on the shore and saw the ship too, but she ignored it and didn't go to light the fire. By the time Richard reached the fire, the ship had already sailed away. This made Richard extremely angry with Emily, but she told him that she loved the island and didn't want to leave. Richard snapped and told her that he would leave on his own. He began preparing his tools and spent months building a boat. Finally, he set sail, but as soon as the boat neared the shore, it collapsed and sank. Emily laughed at him and told him it was his fourth failed attempt at building a boat. She mocked him, saying he should give up, which only fueled Richard's anger. They got into an argument, during which he threw a coconut at her, knocking her unconscious. Frightened, Emily ran to check on him when he woke up, but Richard struck her and threw all her clothes out of the house. He told her it was his house, and since he built it, she needed to find another place to live. Emily gathered her belongings and moved into a cave by the shore. Days passed as Emily lived in the cave, completely avoiding Richard. He, in turn, ignored her and didn't leave her any food or fruit. One day, Emily decided to revisit the other side of the island to see the statue again. On her way back, she stepped on a poisonous fish, causing her to fall seriously ill. She stayed in the cave for days without showing herself. Noticing her absence, Richard went to check on her. He was horrified to find her sick and tried his best to help her. Emily asked him to take her to the statue, and reluctantly, Richard agreed. He carried her there and took care of her until, eventually, she began to recover. At that moment, Richard feels a great joy and tells her that he was afraid of losing her, just like he lost his mother. He expresses his gratitude to Emily for being well and asks her to go back home. They both return to the house, and their relationship begins to improve once again. This time, they confess their love for each other. One day, Emily feels a severe pain and tries to distance herself from Richard, who is worried and asks if she no longer loves him. Emily reassures him that she still loves him but is sick, saying that she feels something strange moving in her belly and doesn't understand the cause. Both of them think that it might be a dangerous illness. After several months, Emily's belly grows, and it turns out that she is pregnant, but she didn't know. One day, while Richard is hunting, he hears the same sound of drums and decides to check its source. He goes to the other side of the island and uses his skills to confirm that he finds a tribe praying in front of a statue. Not only that, but they also sacrifice one of their members and offer a sacrifice to their god. At that moment, Richard gets terrified and quickly returns home. There, he finds Emily in great pain, as it is her time to give birth, but neither of them knows this. After a few minutes of Emily's intense pain, she gives birth to a baby. Fortunately, the baby is alive and healthy, but the two are unsure of what to do with the baby. They don't know how to feed him until Emily realizes she's the one who should nurse him. Richard talks to Emily and tells her that he discovered the source of the drum sounds, and that Buddy was right to warn them not to go there. He tells her about the tribe he saw and how they killed one of their own. Emily gets scared and wants to leave the island, but Richard reassures her that the tribe doesn't even know they're there. Days and months pass, and the two live happily with their son, whom they name Buddy, after Buddy the cook, their only friend. Emily also starts teaching him to swim at an early age. One day, Richard decides to go to the place where Buddy died. When he arrives, he finds Buddy's body decomposed, leaving only the skeleton. Richard compares the skeleton to his own body and sees Buddy's skull, understanding why Buddy was frightened when he saw the skull in the first days on the island. Years pass, and Richard and Emily live on the island with their son Buddy, who grows up before their eyes. One day, a ship approaches the island, and they realize that the ship's owner is Richard's father, who has been searching for his son for many years without tiring, certain that Richard is still alive. At the same time, Richard and Emily are playing with their son on the shore. When Richard sees the ship, he's surprised. They quickly return to their house, and Richard's father sees them walking away from the shore instead of asking for help. He says that it's not his son and asks the ship's crew to continue their journey. The next day, Emily asks Richard to take her to the place where they lived together when they were younger. They go there and reminisce about their childhood memories. Emily then returns to the boat with her child, and Richard goes to gather fruit. At that moment, the boat begins to drift, and one of the oars falls into the water. Emily calls for Richard to help them, and he arrives, attempting to reach the shore. Suddenly, a shark appears and approaches them. At that moment, Emily feels faint and screams at Richard to return to the boat. To save him, Emily hits the shark with the other oar. They struggle in the boat, drifting in the water. They don't know what to do next, and 2 days pass without finding a way back to the island, especially after the oars drifted away. During this time, they see Buddy eating a bunch of poisonous berries. When Emily sees him, she tries to stop him from eating them, but it's too late. Richard feels that this is the end, and so he decides that they must end their lives with their son, who will soon die from the poison. He gathers the remaining berries and divides them between himself and Emily. After eating them, they embrace each other, preparing to die peacefully. At that moment, Richard's father is nearby with his ship. When he sees the boat, he recalls that it was the same boat Richard was in with Buddy during the ship's fire. He orders the crew to approach the boat quickly. When they reach it and see the two of them, Richard's father gets worried and asks if they are dead, but one of the crew members reassures him that they are alive, just deeply asleep. Fortunately, the berries weren't poisonous, and Richard and Emily are still alive. Finally, after many years of isolation on the island, Richard's father was able to reach them and rescue them. This is where today's story ends. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video.